Welcome to the Deep Dive. We've gathered a whole stack of sources, articles, notes, research, and, well, we're here to pull out the really important stuff for you. Today is pretty intense. We're looking at global conflicts, some, frankly, amazing military tech, and that whole shadowy world of intelligence ops.
Yeah, we've got first-hand accounts, some deep dives into secret tech. It's quite a mix.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. The mission, as always, is to cut through all the noise, go beyond the headlines.
Find those nuggets of knowledge.
Exactly. Give you the core facts, maybe some surprising details so you feel, properly informed without drowning in information.
And it's quite the journey today. We start on the ground in Ukraine, some really harrowing stuff. Then shift to that shadow war between Iran and Israel.
Right.
And finally, some of this military tech that feels like it's straight out of science fiction, but it's reshaping warfare right now.
Let's do it.
Okay, Ukraine first. The sources we reviewed, they paint a really visceral picture. One account literally calls it probably the worst, most terrifying experience of my life.
Yeah, because of the shelling. Constant Russian artillery. It's brutal.
And it makes you think, this isn't like past conflicts, is it?
Yeah.
The rules, or lack thereof, it's different from, say, Iraq.
Totally different. And what's interesting is why people go there. One source was very clear they wanted to find the truth for themselves.
Beyond the usual narratives.
Yeah. Is it democracy versus autocracy? Is it just about American interests? They wanted to see it firsthand.
That takes serious determination.
Absolutely. Flying into Poland, then an 18-hour train to Kyiv, seeing the defenses, the damage everywhere, it really hits home.
But how do you even get to the front? As a journalist, unarmed, just a press patch, seems almost impossible.
Well, it seems the key was making connections, informally.
How so?
This journalist mentioned getting drinks in Kyiv with Ukrainian media, but also guys from HRR and SBU, their intelligence and security services.
Early, just like that.
Apparently so. They bonded over some special Ukrainian drink, learned some curse words, and that somehow led to this incredible opportunity, a trip to Kursk.
Kursk? In Russia?
Well, yeah, technically Russia, but it was actually under Ukrainian control at that specific moment. It shows how those personal links can open doors.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So as they got closer to the actual front lines, what changed? What did it look like?
The signs of war just got more and more intense. Checkpoints like every 20 kilometers.
Manned by who?
Ukrainian SBU, looking for deserters,
Yeah.
Russian saboteurs, And the buildings just blown to smithereens.
And the drones. We hear so much about drones.
Oh, yeah. Constant threat. They called them IEDs with wings.
Wow.
Makes basic stuff like moving troops around for rotations incredibly hard. Dangerous.
There's one specific story. A mission with a vampire drone unit, really close to the zero line.
Yeah, that sounded terrifying. 5 kilometers out, within range of everything, artillery, mortars.
In a jeep, flying through fields at night.
Right. At one point, they realized a Russian drone was tracking them. Overhead. Chillin' stuff.
Yet the source also talks about this. Bipolar existence. 1 minute, intense combat. The next, like a gourmet dinner. How does that even work?
Well, it's about compartmentalizing, isn't it? A survival mechanism. You have to switch off or find some normalcy, even for a moment.
Incredible resilience.
Absolutely. And that resilience, that will to fight, that's key to understanding how Ukraine's held on.
Like that soldier quoted.
Yeah.
Forced into service for years, but still defiant.
Exactly. Saying, fuck Russia, this is our country, and we're not giving it up.
Yeah.
That internal drive, it's something you didn't see in, say, Afghanistan, despite all the U.S. investment.
Right. So where does this all lead? How does this war end, according to the sources? Any predictions?
A couple of main theories seem to pop up. One, it just kind of fizzles out. Frozen front lines, a long stalemate.
Okay. And the other?
The other is Russia keeps pushing, making gains. And that could trigger escalatory steps.
Right.
Like European countries, UK, France, others sending in trainers, advisors into Western Ukraine.
Shades of other conflicts. Like China entering the Korean War.
Exactly that kind of parallel. When U.S. forces got too close to their border, it's a real possibility.
What about peace talks? Are they even happening? Any strategies being floated?
Well, one strategy mentioned involves former President Trump The idea of a maximum pressure first on Ukraine, then Russia.
He's also said he'd give Ukraine more weapons, though, right?
He has, yes. It's complex. And then there's talk of economic tools like secondary tariffs.
Described as a nuclear option of sanctions.
Pretty much. Hitting countries like China and India hard if they keep buying Russian oil. But right now, Russia feels strong. They're making gains, so they're probably not eager to negotiate.
And it's not just Russia and Ukraine, is it? Other countries are getting pulled in.
Definitely. Sources mention North Korean troops fighting for Russia.
Wow.
And China's aid is significant. Machine parts, microchips for drones, nitrate for shells.
So that really changes the dynamic.
It absolutely does. And it potentially puts the U.S. in a more direct confrontation, or at least tension, with China over this.
Okay, let's pivot. From the open battlefields of Ukraine to, well, the shadows. This conflict between Iran and Israel. We have sources talking about mysterious bombings at Iranian nuclear sites.
Yeah, different theories swirling around about how much damage was done.
Like the dig tactic. Multiple bombs on the same spot.
Great to penetrate deeper. Or that deception tactic, B-2 bombers flying west, then suddenly banking east towards Iran. Pretty sophisticated stuff.
And the damage was serious.
Seems so. Even the Iranian foreign minister admitted publicly that the facilities were seriously damaged.
So where does Iran actually stand with nuclear weapons capability? The sources say close, but...
Yeah, the assessment is they're maybe within 2 weeks, maybe a month, of having enough fissile material for a bomb. But, and this is crucial, they haven't actually chosen to make that bomb.
And even if they did, it takes time to build a warhead.
Another 6 months, roughly, is the estimate. So capability versus actual weaponization. It's different from Israel's position, right? Their whole strategic ambiguity thing.
Where everyone assumes they have nukes, but they never say.
Exactly. They never confirm or deny.
But how could Iran develop this stuff secretly if, as sources suggest, Mossad has such deep penetration inside Iran?
That's the million-dollar question. The evidence for that penetration is pretty compelling.
Like knowing where scientists live? And those remote machine guns used in assassinations.
Yeah, over 15 scientists killed, often in really high-tech ways. And then that recent mass arrest, over 700 people in Iran accused of Mossad ties. That suggests a huge network.
So it must be incredibly hard for Iran to keep secrets.
You'd think so. It points towards maybe some level of internal compromise being almost inevitable.
So why do they keep going? If they're so exposed, what's the strategic thinking?
It seems to be about deterrence. Having the capability to build a bomb quickly is seen as insurance against regime change.
Especially after what happened in Iraq and Libya.
Precisely. Publicly, they stick to the peaceful purposes narrative. Medical isotopes, nuclear power, which only needs low enrichment, like 4%.
So, a public face and a private capability.
Seems to be the strategy.
And it's not just Mossad, right? U.S. and UK intelligence are involved, too. We know about Stuxnet.
You're right, that big cyber attack by the U.S. and Israel. But sending actual human agents, assets, into Iran from outside, that's getting tougher.
What is that?
Facial recognition, basically. Things like Clearview AI, the same tech used in Ukraine to ID Russian soldiers. It makes it much riskier to insert someone new.
So it's easier to flip someone already inside?
Generally, yes. But then the challenge becomes trust. How do you know you can rely on them?
Good point.
The sources suggest it's not just about money. There needs to be some real emotional attachment to pain and suffering, maybe a shared enemy, to build genuine loyalty.
Which makes that CIA YouTube channel trying to recruit Russians and Chinese even more fascinating.
Totally. Using these really emotional videos, like that Russian ad saying, the true enemy of Russia is within itself. It's public-facing recruitment. Very different.
And speaking of things becoming public, that New York Times piece about secret CIA bases in Ukraine from 2014, that was quite a reveal.
It really was. 12 bases apparently set up along the border back then.
Training Ukrainians.
Yeah, training their HR officers, Ukraine's CIA equivalent, on drones, javelins, intercepting communications. And that training was apparently crucial in stopping Russia's initial big push in 2022.
But there was an ethical gray area mentioned about targeting information.
Right. The U.S. apparently gave Ukraine info, like Russian troop positions. The Ukrainians then used it to target and kill Russian generals.
Even though the U.S. told them not to use it for killing Russians?
Exactly. That's the ethical tightrope right there, providing intel for defense versus enabling offensive actions.
Why would the CIA leak that story, do you think?
Could be lots of reasons. Making Russia paranoid, justifying their budget and long-term involvement to Congress, showing results. Hard to say for sure.
Okay, let's shift again. Military tech, budgets, the cutting edge. The U.S. spends a lot. $877 billion. How does that really stack up against China's spending?
Well, the official number China gives is one thing, but the reality, it's probably closer to double that.
Double how?
It's partly accounting. They don't count things like the People's Armed Police in their military budget.
Even though they have flamethrowers and rocket launchers.
Right. They're essentially another military branch. Plus, you've got to consider purchasing power parity.
Meaning their money buys more stuff locally.
Exactly. $1 billion goes a lot further building tanks or paying soldiers in China than it does in the U.S. So comparing raw budget numbers is misleading.
Got it. And in drone warfare, you mentioned the U.S. was maybe caught a bit flat-footed by the smaller drones?
Yeah, specifically the cheap, off-the-shelf, first-person view drones that have become so widespread in Ukraine. The U.S. leads in the high-end stuff, but the sheer volume and adaptability of these smaller drones was, well, a bit of a surprise.
So how's the U.S. military adapting?
It's leading to what some call the biggest transformation since the 80s, moving towards this multi-domain task force idea.
Leading.
Less focus on heavy armor, like big tanks, more emphasis on lighter, faster units, like these unarmored infantry squad vehicles, but loaded up with their own drones, integrating everything much more tightly.
Interesting. And while the U.S. adapts, who's supplying drones to countries like Russia?
Iran has been huge for Russia, especially with the Shahed drones.
Yep, you just sold them the drones?
More than that, Iran supplied the tech, sent their own Quds Force people, that's their elite unit, to help set up factories in Russia and train them. They filled a major gap for Moscow.
Okay, let's talk DARPA. What kind of insane things are they working on now? Any cool toys we should know about?
Yeah, there are always cool toys. Two stand out from the sources. First, the Typhon launcher.
Typhon?
Yeah. Looks incredibly ordinary, like a truck from Walmart. Seriously.
Okay. But it's not delivering groceries.
Definitely not. It fires Tomahawk cruise missiles, range over 1,000 kilometers.
Wow. And where are these?
They've stationed some in the Philippines now, which puts China well within range.
And China's reaction?
They're absolutely livid, as the source puts it. You can imagine.
Okay, what's the second cool toy?
The B-21 bomber. The Raider. It's the replacement for the B-2 stealth bomber.
Stealthier, longer range.
That's the idea. Designed to get past advanced air defenses, potentially drop bunker busters deep inside places like China.
That sounds expensive.
Oh, it is. $700 million each. And they plan to build 100 of them. Total cost over 30 years. Around $203 billion.
A huge investment,
Right.
Primarily as a deterrent.
That's the main purpose, yes. A very expensive, very capable deterrent.
So with all this tech, all these tensions, what's the scenario that keeps strategists up at night? The one war everyone's worried could really blow up.
The big concern, according to these sources, is a simultaneous crisis. China invades Taiwan at the same time Russia makes a move against a Baltic state.
Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania.
Right. That two-front scenario would stretch U.S. military resources incredibly thin.
And is there a time frame for this worry?
The assessment mentioned is within the next 3 years. The idea is that this period might be China's perceived peak of its power relative to the U.S., a dangerous window.
That's sobering. Yet there's also this observation that the threshold for war below the nuclear level seems higher than we thought.
Yeah, it's a strange paradox. Look at Ukraine, a massive conventional war raging, but no nuclear use. Or India and Pakistan hitting each other's nuclear-related sites, but stopping short of escalation.
So nations seem willing to push harder conventionally.
It appears so. And regarding Taiwan, U.S. policy has actually been remarkably consistent, despite different administrations, always providing defensive aid.
And there's that interesting theory about AI chips, that giving China access to advanced NVIDIA chips might actually reduce the chance of war.
It's a counterintuitive idea, right? Get them hooked on our AI chips, make them dependent, and maybe push any conflict further down the road. A form of technological entanglement as a deterrent.
Fascinating. This brings us to alliances and just the human side of all this.
Yeah.
Thinking about Israel strategically, they align with the U.S. against shared enemies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, Iraq.
Strategically, yes, the sources confirm they're viewed as 100% our ally in that sense. Common adversaries definitely create alignment.
It's complicated.
Very, because Israel's actions, especially in Gaza recently, are described in the sources using terms like awful, reprehensible, and that makes it really difficult for many Americans to feel that alliance comfortably.
Even acknowledging the horror of October 7th.
Exactly. It's all incredibly complex and painful to watch.
The whole region just seems messy. The sources mention how life is perceived differently there, the frequency of killing. It's hard for Westerners to grasp sometimes.
It is, and that global complexity leads some to question the scale of U.S. involvement overseas. Why have 800-plus bases around the world?
When there are huge problems at home.
Right, like cartels, fentanyl, issues killing hundreds of thousands of Americans annually. It raises questions about priorities and resource allocation.
It also touches on this idea of political truth, doesn't it? The notion that maybe nobody gets it completely right.
Yeah, that both sides in any conflict are often, full of shit in some ways, but also get parts of it right. It's a warning against thinking in absolutes, against talking with certainties.
A healthy dose of skepticism needed.
Definitely. But despite all this, there's still a thread of optimism in the sources, a hope, maybe a belief that somehow
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, that these conflicts will eventually be resolved peacefully, that the next generation finds a way, like previous generations did after World War II, to avoid the ultimate catastrophe.
It reminds me of something someone said, having children is maybe the ultimate act of optimism.
That's a powerful thought.
You're betting on the future, saying, hey, this world better be okay for my kids.
A declaration of hope, absolutely.
Wow, what a deep dive that was. We went from the front lines in Ukraine through the shadow wars into DARPA's labs, and ended up thinking about hope and the future.
Covered a lot of ground.
What really stood out to you in today's deep dive? What insight is sticking with you?
For me, maybe it's this question. As all this tech, military intelligence keeps accelerating, how does our very idea of peace and war change? And what new ethical problems are just starting to surface that we haven't even properly considered yet? Something to chew on.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep digging into the truth.